Good afternoon, Viktor sir.
Good afternoon, Vishwajit. कैसे हैं आप?
Yeah, fine. Thank you for joining. So, Antara, I think we should start actually at 2 p.m. and let people join. Antara?
Yes, sir. Just a second, sir.
Mathuria sir has joined. Pijus?
Sir, he will join soon.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So I'm starting, sir.
Yes.
Okay. A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to everyone present here. I am Antara Kundu, Project Executive, South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. Thank you for joining us in this international brainstorming session on relevance and restoration of riverine heritage, a symbol of cultural identity. On behalf of SAIARD, my heartfelt gratitude to all the distinguished guests, delegates, speakers, and the participants for accepting the invitation and joining us today. This webinar has been jointly organized by South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development in association with SAARC Cultural Center, Sri Lanka, National Mission for Clean Ganga, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India, and National Institute of Urban Affairs, Government of India. So, further making any delay, may I now request Mr. Arindam Ray, Director, Academic Affairs, SAIARD, to say a few words. Over to you, Arindam, sir.
Thank you, Antara. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all the dignitaries present at this Relevance and Restoration of Riverine Heritage webinar organized by SAIARD in association with SAARC, the Cultural Center, Sri Lanka, National Mission for Clean Ganga, Government of India, and National Institute of Urban Affairs, Government of India. We have noticed from the past that all civilizations have developed on the banks of the river, but over time, they have become almost extinct due to the lack of awareness. And India is a riverine country where the riverside places are rich in heritage. But we have to focus how to preserve it, how to bring back the lost glory. So today's discussion is quite relevant, and I wish it a great success. Over to you, Antara.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Bishwit Roy Chaudhuri, Chairman, SAIARD, to say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Antara, and thank you on behalf of SAIARD. I would like to warm welcome to all the research persons, particularly the organizations of SAARC Cultural Center Sri Lanka, Professor Prasanthi ma'am, Honorable Executive Director of National Mission for Clean Ganga, Mathuria sir, and also on behalf of NIUA, Viktor Shinde sir, as well as the Professor Nilima Gupta, Shuchita Sharmin ma'am from Bangladesh, Dhaka University, Aninda from Diamond Harbour Women's University, Professor Gaurav Raheja, IIT Roorkee, for giving your heartful cooperation to join with us to make this event in a more successful way. And also Professor Nilima Gupta, Honorable Vice Chancellors of Dr. Hari Singh Sagar Board, Central University. So on behalf of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development, I heartily welcome to our associate organizations, particularly SAARC Cultural Center Sri Lanka, National Mission for Clean Ganga, and National Institute of Urban Affairs for sharing their heartfelt support to join and to make this event more successful in a grand way. And particularly on behalf of SAIARD, I would like to say that from the very beginning of our institution, as we are mostly focusing for cognitive support, cognitive development and research in activities in project sectors, as well as in case of education skill development units. So on that we are happy to inform you that SAIARD is now also become the regional capacity building centers of both the National Mission for Clean Ganga and National Institute of Urban Affairs. And from the very beginning of our institutions, we are connecting with the several government organizations, international bodies too, for doing lots of academic collaborative projects and activities also. So on this regard, as we are mostly focusing from the river sector centric activities from river urban based activities, and in that perspective we thought that this program will definitely give a very important relevance in not only in case of river and heritage, but in future we are also looking forward to organize lots of these kind of academic initiatives, and particularly the research-based initiatives in association with the SAARC as well as the our both ministries too in future, and for the inter-boundary collaboration it will be. So you will be happy to know that last year we have conducted an first time international river congress in Kolkata, and in coming years we are also looking forward to do this event and to spread the new awareness about the river, about its relevance, its riverine heritage, and all the initiative, all the biodiversity, etc., which are associated with the river and all its parameters in front of the people, as that if we can support them, we can help them to generate some common knowledge, we can generate some common awareness through this event and about the river and its look and its surroundings. So in this regard, through we feel that this event is basically will definitely very much relevance in that perspective, that we saw the riverine heritages and in both of front of the river sides. But most of the cases we don't have to we don't try to think in that sense how we should protect and what are the relevance and how we could generate employment, even tourism sectors and all that sectors, particularly through this the restoration and what are the relevance of this heritage sectors also. So as I told that mostly we are looking forward, particularly the environment, urban, river and urban sectors also. So in this regard, I think this kind of initiative will definitely helpful for the participants, those who will join from the different corners of India and abroad, as well as I will also I will also say that already we had a discussion with Professor Prashanti ma'am with the SAARC Cultural Center. And in future, we are doing several activities, initiatives jointly, and we are really honored to her that she, once I had requested her, she agreed to for this collaboration and for the future collaborations too. So in that perspective, hopefully very soon, we will give you another more initiatives on behalf of both of our institutions as well as our associated ministries, that is the National Mission for Clean Ganga, Ministry of Jal Shakti, along with the National Institute of Urban Affairs in front of you, as that we inform. We would like to get some inputs, we would like to give some inputs to our participants, those who wants to work on that particular field in future, as that how they can get communicated with the world, as well as the vision of Indian government and in front of the world, as well as the international government's thinking. And this conference will not only be a part of the general discussion, we will document it, and after that we will share it to all the respective governments, those who are working on that particular field, or somehow or somebody they are related with the riverine sectors. So that will be one kind of initiative. This is the first one kind of initiative we have started with SAARC, and we are really thankful to all the associate partners as well as the participants, those who have joined. Hopefully through this conference will definitely enhance their knowledge about the riverine sectors, about the riverine heritage, not only about riverine heritage, but riverine biodiversity ecosystem too in future. So with this, once again, I would like to share my sincere thanks to all of you, our participants, and my colleagues, and also our resource persons once again. So thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Now, yes, sir. Now we invite a special guest. Today, a special guest is Dr. Prashanti Narangora, Director, SAARC Cultural Center, Sri Lanka. She is a professor in fine arts in the Department of Fine Arts of the University of Kelaniya. She is one of the pioneering research scholars in the field of fine arts, covering many areas and seeking the connectedness of the art, society, and the culture, especially focusing on Sri Lanka and Asia. She was graduated from the University of Kelaniya in 1992 and obtained her Masters of Science degree from the Postgraduate Institute of Archaeology of the same university. She pursued her PhD at the University of the West California in the USA from 2008 to 2012 and earned her PhD with a merit due to the research scholarship she demonstrated throughout. Apart from that, she bears several memberships in renowned organizations, member of the American Association for Religious Studies, member of the UNESCO International Dance Council, and a life member of the Royal Asiatic Society Sri Lankan branch. At university level, she has been the secretary of the Research and Ethics Review Committee of University of Kelaniya since 2016 and elected as the chairman for a term of 3 years from 2022. She is currently holding the post of director, SAARC Culture Center, under the purview of South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. I cordially invite you to, ma'am, to speak a few words, to say a few words towards us. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am, and very good evening to you all. First of all, I must be thankful to you all for inviting me to be one of the guests and the advisory board to participate in this event. And hopefully we will be succeeding in restoring and promoting these riverine cultures, because they have given us an abundance of resources throughout the development of human civilization. And actually, riverine heritage is very much, nowadays it's very much thoughtful of decision by SAIARD, and it is a need for the day to restore and promote the water, especially because we are now in the process of globalization. The global warming is coming up ahead of us, so that it is very much important to see how we can restore and protect the riverine management, especially the water cultures and heritage in this context. Because we know that the river valley civilizations have established in the world thousands of years before today, but widely thinking of the resource management and thinking of the well-being of the mankind of the society. Therefore, it is in fact very much important to notice that it had given the mankind abundance of gifts to sustain ourselves. It educates, not only gives us, it educates us how to manage our lives through the water resources and throughout the riverine heritage and the sentiments in the world. And of course, it has inspired to live so harmoniously, first of all, I must say, by depending and interdepending on each other. Each other means not only the mankind, but the nature. Because throughout the riverine heritage, people have been living with the nature, by depending on nature, by interdepending on nature, because people gave a lot to the nature. Vice versa, the nature gives abundance of resources to the mankind to sustain themselves. For example, the Indus Valley civilization, one of the biggest civilization in the world, and we know that 1/3 of the Asian continent is covered by the Indus Valley civilization. So no doubt about that. During that period, we know that the river valley, Indus Valley civilization had given the humanity abundance of resources to manage themselves. Not only the agriculture, horticulture, technology, housing, art and architecture, everything provides us. There had been a massive culture. It had been developed into an urban civilization due to the particular resources given, not only given, actually gifted by the riverine heritage. So therefore, it is our responsibility today to restore that type of cultural heritage, not only for the present, but also for the future, because we need those assets now and for tomorrow as well. And we know that our geographical distribution gives us a lot of evidence from Egypt to Mesopotamia, from China, Turkey, Iraq, as I told earlier on, to the Indus Valley, we find the same inheritance in these geographical continental plates. However, needless to say that each country has its own riverine heritage. So, for example, Sri Lanka, my country, has a historic riverine culture.
Your
Ma'am,
microphone has been muted.
ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Now, okay,
Yes.
this is muted. I'm sorry. Therefore, what we need to be educated is that these riverine cultures have gifted us immense assets. For example, the polity, economy, society, culture, art and architecture, language, clothes and ornaments, fun and games, everything had been there. So those are the role models for the present day society, how we have to learn for ourselves to lead a good life and to live in peace and harmony, in a very good understanding and brotherhood. Currently, what has happened is rivers around the world are undergoing a new phase of development. We know that the technology has given us a lot of tools, weapons, but sometimes they are not as friendly as possible as we think of them. Because we are developing with those technological tools and developing very rapidly, so fast, faster than we expect, but the significant impacts are so much controversial that the nature will not survive its natural and the resourceful assets for the future. One of the extincting resources in the world are now identified as a riverine heritage, even by UNESCO. And therefore, there is a renewed interest in the river culture as a common concept, as SAIARD is always taking out. That is why I was so happy to share and be part of it, because the riverine management and heritage management especially is an integral component of any of our education, any of our research interests, because it is a common factor that we will no longer live without water. So it is all of our responsibility, and our contribution and the distribution of sharing knowledge should be there always to continue to this fact that we are together to restore the riverine management, because river should be considered a resource with multiple cultural, economic, environmental, and social impact. And with all those words, by combining my words with the UNESCO concept papers, I would say very good luck to you all, and to manage the riverine heritage, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so now we have a keynote lecture by Sri D.P. Mathuria, sir. Sri D.P. Mathuria is an officer of Central Water Engineering Services with about 23 years of overall experience for working in water resources sector government level. He is presently working as Executive Director Technical, National Mission for Clean Ganga, steering implementation of Namami Gange program of Government of India towards pollution abatement in industrial and municipal sector Ganga basin, implementation of flow regime, sand mining, and R&D schemes. During his 23 years of experience, he has worked extensively as part of project management team for planning and investigations of water resources development, projects including those for hydropower development, both in northeastern part of country and Nepal, preparation of their detailed project reports, appraisal of major and medium irrigation, flood control and multipurpose projects alike. In addition, he was also associated with activities related to National Water Mission of National Action Plan for Climate Change, one of the 8 missions identified by Prime Minister Council for Climate Change, for which Department of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation was the nodal ministry. I invite you to say a few words, sir. Over to you, Dr. D.P. Mathuria. Shri D.P. Mathuria.
Mathuria sir.
So you are not audible, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to all. And it is indeed a great pleasure for me to join this esteemed group of experts joining from various universities from India and abroad as well as the officials from SAIARD who has facilitated this seminar workshop on a very, very important topic concerning the natural heritage that our rivers preserve and need to preserve those heritages. I heard Professor Naragoda from Director SAARC Cultural Center, Sri Lanka, and it was extremely heartening as well as enriching to learn from her about the priorities that are being propagated through UNESCO's efforts as well as through SAARC Cultural Center in respect of riverine heritage and riverine relevance and restoration of riverine heritages. Well, we all, I think, I'm very sure that everyone acknowledges and is aware that rivers happen to be a very, very important footprints of what we usually call hydrological cycle. In fact, they are an essential signatures of this natural hydrological cycle, which involves circulation of water, which happens to be a finite resource on this earth. Circulation of this water between ocean, land, and atmosphere, and it will be perilous to ignore the importance of rivers when it comes to sustenance of humans or any other life form on this earth. So beyond physical, in physical processes, the rivers itself gain an importance in terms of this broad hydrological cycle, which has sustained life on this earth, in even whether it is in microform or in the most advanced and latest mammalian forms over all those large number of the years over since the evolution of Earth. And it is no wonder that all human civilizations over history have flourished and nurtured all along the major river basins, whether you call it Indus River Basin or Mesopotamian or Nile, or they have been cradles for the major civilizational boost, and therefore they have been cradles for the heritage which comes with these civilization. But I'll go beyond that. beyond human sustenance and support that river and its water resources offer to the human population, it has got much larger ramifications and much larger implications when we look at entire flora, aquatic wildlife as well as terrestrial wildlife which it nurtures. So when we visualize life on this planet Earth, we cannot visualize this life without existence of these the linear water bodies, which are in fact, which I have called them as signatures of the hydrological cycle. So there is a very important need which has been felt over last few 30 years of intense anthropogenic interventions that has gone into the natural processes, and which has led to degradation of these linear water bodies which we call rivers. And India has not been a loner in this particular concept. There has been a political catalyst in form of programs that government has initiated for a rejuvenation of rivers and water bodies in the country, and these programs are massive and gigantic. They not only look at riverine heritages, restoration of their qualities, preserving their quality of the resources that these systems offer, but also they look beyond that in form of sanitation, health of the human beings, and restoration of the overall ecosystem. It's no wonder that the ecosystem services that these riverine water bodies offer, if we start evaluating and monetizing it, I'm very sure they will be beyond any kind of imagination. When we started our journey with SAIARD in the form of a memorandum of understanding last year, we visualized that let us look at bringing more number of stakeholders and partners in our journey toward restoration of rivers and the heritages that are associated with that. And today, when we are sitting here, in fact, Dr. Vishwajit Roy just now told us about the last year's event of International River Congress, which was extremely successful and extremely enriching event. And today we are sitting with some of our SAARC fellows sharing their experiences on these very pertinent subjects, which transcends the political boundaries and concerns everyone. Well, if we look at India, India, this is a massive landmass, and we share about 2.5% of world's landmass, but and in fact support about 18% of the global population and equal population of livestock, but we have a share of only 4% of the freshwater resources. And therein starts this vicious cycle of exploitation of the natural resources, exploitation of the water resources without looking at the need of the rivers in the riverine system when it comes to the resources. And therefore, the concept of holistic river basin management to look at the rivers and their resources and to judiciously allocate those resources among various competitive stakeholders has been one of the very important vision of Government of India. And among these visions, looking at the climate resilient management paradigms, providing safe and quality drinking water to the population, looking at the sanitation issues, and obviously looking at water conservation and reuse have been some of the important hallmarks of the program. Coming to the program that we are handling in one of our major river basins in the country, which goes by the name Namami Gange program, which in fact is an integrated river conservation mission, and which looks at restoration of not only physical but biological as well as chemical qualities of the water of this basin. This basin is home to about 520 million people. I mean, that is a very, very big number, and everyone knows it. And its catchment area covers about 26% of the Indian landmass, and it covers about 11 federal states in the country. And overall, if we look at Indian figures, it contributes about 30%, 1/3 of the total water resources of the country. So this basin happens to be very, very important in terms of providing livelihood, and life support to this 520 millions of the people who look at this river as well as water resources, not only for their sustenance but also for their well-being. This program, as I've said, is the Integrated River Conservation Program, and it is looking at some of very long-term objectives for restoration as well as short-term objectives. For example, one of the essential pillars are ensuring that flows in the river are maintained, because it has been realized that over the period of time, with unrestricted development happening in the basin, there has been competitive demand for water, and so the needs of the water for the river per se has to be ensured and has to be prioritized. So the concept of providing unrestricted flow in the rivers, looking at the pollution, whether it is from municipalities or the industrial sources, and more importantly, looking at people connect with the river, bringing this is one of the very important pillars, wherein bridging the existing gap by providing resilient people connect with the river has been one part, an important part of this entire holistic approach. This entire endeavor of looking at the river and rejuvenating the rivers has led us to believe that there is more to all these efforts. For example, this basin has been supporting a vast array of various tangible and intangible heritages that are associated with this river system. These heritages can be natural, these heritages can be architectural, these heritages are in fact cultural heritages also, and a major study has also been undertaken to document this vast resource and the legacy heritages that are existing in about 51 districts in this basin. And some very, very interesting observations have come out of these studies. For example, this river has some islands which are inhabited. So some kind of questions came in as to should there be a policy for management and regulations of the activity in these diyars and islands. These certainly are very, very essential riverine features which needs to be preserved when we look when we talk about these about the rivers and the river systems and its entirety. Apart from these studies for documentation of various heritage, natural, architectural, cultural heritages of the Ganga system, a very quite a big study is also being undertaken to map the river basin on a very, very high resolution scale imageries through undertaking LIDAR based high resolution surveys. These efforts are first of its kind in the country, and the scale at which they have been undertaken will unravel more mysteries associated with not only with the landform patterns that are associated with the rivers, but also at various policy paradigms which will be needed to restore the rejuvenation efforts of the Ganga river system. When we look at the connect that this river has provided to the population, I'm sure that everyone is aware of enormity of the connect the Ganga river system has with the population. In 2019, we had the Kumbh festival, which happens at a repetitive cycle of every 12 years. In fact, every 6 years and 6 years. So 2019 Kumbh saw congregation of more than 20 crores of people on the banks of river Ganga at Prayagraj at different times, and that is the kind of connect the people has this river, and restoring the heritage of the river will ultimately and eventually will lead to bringing these people their faith, which over the years has been impacted because of the quality concerns the water. I'll like to apprise the audience with some of important achievements that has happened over these last few years, particularly in respect of Ganga River Basin. There were in fact 4 polluted stretches on the river which were earlier in 2018 were identified by the central pollution regulators in the country, and this massive scale of operations interventions under this program has led to almost all these polluted stretches being converted to non-polluted stretches. The quality of the water that the system, the Ganga river system carries, the efforts in restoring the quality of the waters are finding more and more success, and this has been possible through building the stakeholder relationship with research institutions, with various agencies, with various organizations which are working, as well as a large number of communities which are residing on the banks of river Ganga. And when we say large number of communities, we have been able to vigorously and proactively make a connect with a dedicated cadre of people, communities who are living on the banks of river Ganga, and they remain guardians as well as foot soldiers who carry out the various activities, inculcating best of the practices among the communities. We call them by different names, for example, Ganga Praharis, Ganga Doot, or NIUA Kendra volunteers. They have been active all along in carrying forward the message of preserving the river and the river systems. The initiative that has started from Ganga river system for preservation of its riverine heritage has gained movement in this country, and there are now much bigger as well as loud demands for creating a similar kind of governmental programs wherein all the partners are brought together for keeping the other river systems which have impacted over all those years also clean. And we are very sure that the good lessons that has been learned in the Ganga basin while carrying out implementing the various aspects of the program, various activities of the program, will help in refining as well as carrying forward similar activities, as well as amplifying these activities in other river basins in this country. And In particular, when we look at our association with SAIARD, I am quite hopeful that through this platform, a more vibrant connect with the similar kind of efforts in our neighboring SAARC nations will also be available, and we'll also through the series of webinars and seminars will learn about various essential R&D activities and the concerns which should be addressed in future to keep these systems, these river systems, which are in fact part and parcel of human civilization, clean, rejuvenated, as well as healthy. In fact, remains wholesomely clean, rejuvenated, so that the heritage, in fact, heritage kind of a tag which we associate with the rivers remains inviolable. In fact, I personally look at the rivers, say for example, Ganga River. It is a natural heritage and it should be preserved at all times, and there should be an effort to declare it as a national natural heritage, so that inviolability of the riverine systems and association of all those cultural, architectural, as well as other attributes remains in place for all times to come. So with these my thoughts, I'll stop here, and I'll hand over the proceedings to Antaraji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah, Antara, you may unmute yourself. Please.
Sorry for the inconvenience. Actually, I have a poor network today. Extremely sorry. Okay, so our next guest is Dr. Viktor Shinde. Having 17 plus years of experience as a scientist and technical expert, water and environment in 9 countries in Asia and Africa, Dr. Viktor Shinde is currently working as Sector Coordinator for Water and Environment, National Institute of Urban Affairs. His areas of expertise include urban environmental management, integrated water resources management, water security enhancement, climate change adaptation in water sector, flood risk assessment, and M&E frameworks for water and environmental sector. He leads the project that seeks to promulgate river-sensitive development in Indian cities. He is also associated with the development of the Master Plan for Delhi 2041, leading the water and environment section. Prior to joining NIUA, he worked at the Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, where he developed a framework for river health assessment for the rivers in Thailand. He has published more than 30 articles through journal articles, conference proceedings, and chapters. He holds a PhD in urban management from Kyoto University, Japan, Masters in water engineering and management from the Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, and Bachelor's in civil engineering from Karnataka University, India. May I now request Dr. Viktor Shinde to give the plenary lecture. Over to you, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much, Antara, for that introduction, and a very good afternoon to all of you. It's such a great pleasure for me to be here, amongst this wonderful gathering that we have here. And at the onset, I must, I must convey apologies on behalf of my director. It was actually the NIUA director who was supposed to make this this brief lecture, but unfortunately, there was some unexpected trouble that came along, because of which I am kind of his replacement here, right? So we just want to thank Biswajit. I think this is a great initiative that he has started, and on NIUA's behalf, we are very proud and very happy, to be associated with this initiative. Like Mathuria sir as well mentioned a little while ago, that that this collaboration that we've had for some time now is really now starting to show some interesting fruits, and and the results. It's a great honor for us to be associated with this, right? So, for those of you who don't know NIUA, maybe I'll just take a minute or so to introduce NIUA. So we are the National Institute of Urban Affairs, and we are widely regarded as the think tank for India's Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, right? So we have a very urban focus, and our constituency typically is the 4,200 cities that we have in India, right? Our mission is to help our cities, move up the development ladder in a sustainable way. Right? So sustainable development is very much at the core of everything that we do. And when we talk about sustainable development, I think water and rivers, the theme of this discussion today, we can't separate the two, right? Rivers and water are very much very central to the sustainable development narrative, in not only our cities, but I think every city in the world here. So over the last 4 years or so now, we have been working very closely with the National Mission for Clean Ganga, and we just heard Mathuria sir, give us a brief about the whole mandate about NMCG, or the National Mission for Clean Ganga. Our work, of course, their work is huge, humongous. The kind of activities, the scale at which NMCG is working is really huge, right? But our association with them is very specific to the urban aspects. Because, like I said, our mandate is very urban centric. So we are also looking at the urban aspects of river management. And I'm sure nobody will disagree with me here when I say that a bulk of the problems in our rivers are because of cities. Urban areas are the primary drivers of the deteriorated state of rivers in our cities. And I think if we have to solve the problem, if we have to even begin to think about solving the problem, it must start with the cities, right? So it is with that mindset that we started up this program with them in terms of promulgating river-sensitive development, in our cities, right? So the theme of this discussion today, of this webinar, when we talk about river heritage, it's so easy to identify with when you bring in the social aspects, right? Because when you talk about heritage, the natural heritage, you kind of, there is a natural connotation and a natural linkage with the social fabric of society. And I think that is where I'm coming from today, is to try and talk a little bit about our experiences, with managing urban rivers in India. We've been working for the last 4 years, and there have been a number of interesting insights that we have gathered, things that we did not know in the past, but now are becoming very evident. And I'd just like to share maybe 5 such aspects with you today, for this discourse here. Number one is that, whenever we talk about a river, and especially in the urban context, and in fact, most of my talk today is going to be focused on the urban context. So when we talk about a river in the urban context, it's very important to understand and be cognizant of the fact that a river is not a standalone system. It is a system of interconnected elements. So while, of course, there is the river, there is the floodplain attached with it, there are water bodies, wetlands, which may not necessarily be in the immediate vicinity of the river, but nonetheless are very strongly connected to the river. Then there is the social aspects, the social interaction with the river, the economic interaction with the river. All in all, it is a system, right? And managing an urban river is essentially managing this system. Far too often, the initiative or the endeavors that are taken to manage these rivers are purely from an environment perspective, right? Control the pollution in river, right? You make the rivers healthy, and there's nothing wrong in that, right? Don't get me. I'm not contesting that line of thought. I think what I'm trying to drive here is that while that is great, okay, but managing the river in a holistic manner, it ensures a better chance of sustained impact, right? So when we're looking at long-term solutions, when we're looking at solutions, that are sustainable, that are long-lasting, it is important to look at the river as a whole system. So it is on that premise, that NMCG and NIUA, we thought long and hard about it. How do we actually get our cities to look at that systems approach, as it is commonly called, right? And we came up with a framework which is called an urban river management plan framework, which essentially requires all cities in India, river cities in India, to work against a common 10-point agenda. And this 10-point agenda, I'm not going to go in details here, but these 10-point agenda encompasses aspects about environment, of course, which is important, but also economics and the social aspect. So typically, this is ideally looking at the triple bottom line, or as we call the principles of sustainability, when we have environment, economics, and the social elements looked at in cohesion. So that framework is something, again, it's a very unique framework. Cities have not seen that. I think even across the world, there is no such framework that has been designed. But the point is that I think once cities start to use that, that line of thought, that we have to look at all the three aspects, collectively, that is when we will be able to make some kind of a noticeable and a long-lasting difference on the ground. So that was one, looking at a river as a system. The second aspect that I want to highlight is, and again, based on our experiences, when we talk about solutions, for river management, there are hardly any perfect solutions. A perfect solution is like, okay, a yes or a no, a tick, either a 0 or a 100. So there are hardly any perfect solutions because there is always some degree of trade-off. Right? So in order to achieve one solution, there is a bit of trade-off with some other element. And this is very evident when we look at the river floodplain or the river banks per se. There is tremendous competition for the kind of use of river banks or the the immediate vicinity of the river. Let me give you an example here. So when Antra was introducing me, she also mentioned that my organization is working on the next master plan for Delhi. Right? So the year of 2041. And in the lead up to the preparation of the plan, we had discussions with several categories of stakeholders to solicit their opinion, to understand what are their views, in terms of how the Yamuna should be managed, right? And there were at least 3 different categories of people who came to me, or in fact, who came to us. And one group said that we need to have that citizen connect with the Yamuna River in Delhi, right? So you have to make it more vibrant, make it more appealing, commercialize the area, something that you see in the West, right? Make it very attractive riverfronts. That is when it kind of brings in that value for the river. There was another group, a very contrary opinion, a very environmentalist approach, saying that, right, we need to protect the entire river zone. You can't have a drop of concrete in the river zone. It has to be naturalized. Maintain it in any, in a very natural form. Only then will you be able to, protect the river from something. There was yet another group that came to us and said that, bringing in the social elements. There are so many farmers that are in the farm, in the floodplain, right? Their livelihoods depend upon the river, right? So please make sure that you don't get rid of them, in the new plan. Don't make sure that, but typically, I won't call them encroachment, but, they are, to some extent, that they're perhaps not legally allowed to be there. So just make sure that, they are given the privilege to continue the farming and encourage urban farming along the river, because that is the most fertile land. So see, what you can see here is, there is intense competition, for that floodplain. And when we have such a situation, it is very difficult to come up with a very perfect solution. So the solutions will always be optimal. And when I mean optimal, it means it is a bit of everything, right? It is the best with what you can manage, right? When you have multiple stakeholders and multiple demands, you kind of need to arrive at that point of contraflexion, which means everybody has to yield a little bit. There's a bit of trade-off that everybody would have to do, right? And far too often, most of these solutions for river management are of that nature, the optimal nature here. The third aspect I want to highlight is, again, some of the solutions, and I'm not saying all, to solve, some of these solutions are actually, for river management, require us to solve some wicked problems. And when I talk about wicked problems, these are problems that are seemingly endless. So if you solve one, the second problem starts, the third problem starts, and it has a cascading effect, right? A typical case is like addressing the informal settlements on the river bank, right? Now it is, if you want the river to have its room, which is a very ecological and environmentalist approach, and the correct approach, of course, right? So that would mean a lot of the informal settlements would need to be replaced or relocated somewhere else, right? Now that is a process by itself, because it's not easy to relocate people at the drop of a hat, right? There's a process. People are not happy, and in so many ways, sometimes you're just transferring the problem from one area to another, right? So it requires a very sensitive approach to solving these wicked problems, and more importantly, it requires a very inclusive approach, right? It can't be a top-down thing, where the government decides that, okay, this is what's going to happen, and go ahead with it, right? It has to be a very bottom-up approach, inclusive, and it might take some time. Wicked problems always will take some time, right? So some of the, like I said, solving some of the issues or challenges related to urban rivers would mean also solving some of these wicked problems here. Number 4 is, again, this is based on experiences that we've had in different cities across India, that a lot of the solutions for river management, would have to be taken up in patches, in increments. Right? Now, we might be very ambitious with what we want, but we also have to be very pragmatic that a lot of these things are not going to happen overnight. Let me give you one example. As you must be aware that one of the best practices, especially in urban river management, is to have a riparian buffer along the banks of rivers. Right, a riparian buffer is essentially a vegetation strip, a thick, of certain thickness. It could be 30 meters or 15 meters, whatever. But the idea is to have this vegetated strip along the bank so that it can act as a shock absorber. Right, so any detrimental activity from the city, it can kind of filter out the pollutants. It can help in preventing soil erosion and increase the sedimentation in the rivers. Right, so it has a lot of interesting and very useful features, and which is why it is advised that as far as possible we must have this riparian buffer. Right, but when we started to actually work this out in some of the cities, what we realized is that in many areas, the development is right up to the edge of the river. It's right up to the edge. And this is happening not just in Delhi, but in Kanpur, where we have worked, and several other cities that, in India. Right? So now to claim or to plan for a riparian buffer along the entire stretch of the urban, stretch of the river, it's impracticable. It's not going to be possible to do it in one go because of the problems. Like I said, if there is development right up to the edge, how do you get rid of that? There's a process that needs to be followed, right? So the approach that needs to be taken in such areas, or this is what we think is appropriate, is to do it in increments, right? So protect or preserve what you can today, all right, and then gradually when those areas come up for redevelopment or when they're taken up for redevelopment, introduce certain norms and regulations in your planning documents, so that kind of a buffer is kept for the river. So a lot, like I said, so some of the solutions, of course, can be quick. But number of these solutions would also take time, right? So which is why I think any planning, any plan for an urban river must account for the fact that it is a slightly long drawn process. All right, and it's a process, and it's always going to continue. it's not a destination. Right? It's a continuously improving process that we need to follow. And finally, the fifth aspect that I want to highlight is that when we talk about urban rivers, again, a lot of the times the focus is on projects. Let's construct an STP, let's construct an interceptor sewage project, and it's more infrastructure approach, right? Cleaning up the river, protecting it, barricading it, protecting it from erosion or whatever, right? And these are great things. I'm not contesting the importance or undermining the importance of these. Right? These are very much required. But in addition to this, what is also required, and especially if you are thinking about a long-term, a long-term protection and amalgamation or harmonization of the river within the city landscape, is to also plan for it. And when I talk about plan, I'm talking about the urban planning aspects. Right? So introduce or mainstream river thinking, into the city planning process itself. Right? And here is where the role of a city development plan or a city master plan, or if it's a region, it's a regional plan, that comes to the fore. Because these typically are documents that are legally binding, meaning anything that goes into this is, it is mandatory to kind of to do that. Otherwise, there are legal repercussions, and people can be taken to court if this is not done. So here is a wonderful opportunity, to introduce progressive features, like a no development zone just next to the river, or it could be introducing the right kind of earmarking, the right kind of land use, in the floodplain. Right? Earmarking areas of protection, no conservation zone. There's a whole suite of instruments and regulations that can be actually introduced through master plans in order to protect and have that sustainable flow and sustainable management of rivers. Right? Again, in this aspect, I just want to highlight a document that NMCG and NIUA have prepared, and this is a guidance document, in terms of how to prepare river-sensitive master plans. So when a city is preparing a master plan, how do you actually integrate the thinking related to master plans, related to the rivers, in the whole planning process, right? What are the tools that a master plan has, and how can these tools be used to address the common river-related challenges that our cities have? So I think these are some of the things that that as a country we are looking forward to, and we have started this this kind of a discourse on urban rivers, and NMCG and NIUA, we've managed to create a bit of a buzz around this, and we're hoping that to continue this over the next few years, and hoping to again usher in an era where we have river sensitive cities. So yeah, so these were some of the thoughts I just wanted to share with you, and we'll be very happy to interact with anyone. I'll put my email in the chat box, and please feel free to reach out. And NMCG and NIUA, we are always willing to hear from you and listen to new ideas, and then also take those ideas to a logical conclusion. So thank you very much, and I'll just turn it over to Antra now.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Okay, now we have some presentations. At first, we have Professor Nilima Gupta. She is currently the Vice Chancellor of Dr. Hari Singh Gaur University, Sagar, MP. She has been the former Vice Chancellor, Chhatrapati Shahu Ji Maharaj University, Kanpur, TM Bhagalpur University, Bhagalpur, Munger University, Munger. She holds 36 years of teaching experience. She has visited the 5 continents of the world, including the countries of Japan, Poland, Singapore, China, Thailand, Hong Kong, Germany, France, USA, UK, Australia, and Egypt, and has foreign invitations for Hungary, Czech Republic, and Canada. She was awarded the Center of Excellence by the government of Uttar Pradesh for development of high-tech lab, and her laboratory is one of the best of the country. She is the principal investigator of 11 international and national research projects, worth rupees 1.8 crores funded by UGC, DST, AICT, Ministry of Environment and Forests, UPCR, and AI CopTax research project awarded by Ministry of Environment and Forests. Till date, she has 8 books, 2004 research papers to her credit. She is a recipient of more than 70 awards. Today, she will be speaking on pollution of River Ganga. Over to you, ma'am, Professor Nilima Gupta.
Thank you very much, Antara. I'm very pleased, and first of all, I would like to compliment Dr. Chaudhary for taking up this venture and allowing us to think something about the riverine heritage. Firstly, I really like this word. You know, we talk about different types of heritage, and since I've been working on aquatic pollution, I was very pleased to see that we are recognizing it as a heritage. Because if we talk about our country, we are indeed very rich in the river water. It may be river Ganga, it may be river Mandakini, it may be river Tapti, it may be river Yamuna, Godavari, Kaveri, Alaknanda, Jhelum, Indus, Brahmaputra, Periyar, Krishna, Mahanadi, Narmada. In fact, if we try to have an overview of the riverine system all over the world, I must say that India is one of the richest countries in having the river water. And there was a time when we were very proud of our river water. It may be Gangajal, which we get from Gangotri or Yamnotri. And just imagine the quality of river water which is present there. And in fact, people going to Haridwar or to Rajghat or to Kalagarh, they were very happy that they were having pure water. But what happened to this water, and why is it that today we are thinking about that it is a heritage and how we must save it? Because indeed, we all recognize that it is a heritage. And as the topic says, that relevance and restoration, that is indeed, as I've just spoken, that I must say that it is indeed a heritage for us, and we must think about restoring it. But the question arises, what have we done to our river, and what is its situation right now? So I think maybe I can use a few slides to just show you what is the work which I have done. And I'm not going into the data, but I'll just show what is the situation of the river water right now. So in fact, I started my work on river Ramganga, which is a tributary of river Ganga. It has a stretch of over 600 kilometers. And I worked from Kalagarh to Kannauj, where it merges with river Ganga. And incidentally, I was in Bareilly first, and then I became the Vice Chancellor of Kanpur. And where I stopped, that is at Kannauj, and the Ganga was there. It was, can you see the presentation? Is it visible? Antara, is the presentation visible?
Ma'am, to me, not yet, ma'am. I cannot see. Actually, I have a very poor network today, so
No,
it would
no,
be
no.
very
No,
helpful if
it's not
anybody-
visible.
It's not visible. Okay.
It's not visible. Even it's not visible to me also.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now is it visible?
I mean, it's coming.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just quickly go through these slides because the time is not much. So we talk about Holy Ganga. So today the question is that
Ma'am,
is
please
our,
share, keep it in slide share mode.
and I'll do it, but maybe okay, I'll try. But sometimes sometimes it's
Just press F5.
yeah, I'm doing that. Slideshow. Yeah, is it okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So the question arises today that our holy Ganga, which we call as Ganga, and we know that we pray to this holy river. But if we just go back, I often say that our great grandfather, he drank the river water, and you can see the quality of the water, and it was regarded to be poor. But then grandfather, they started going to the well and they started drinking well water, and that was also regarded to be pure. Father, in fact, we were drinking tap water, and it was regarded to be pretty safe because there was one intermediate stage also, hand pump stage. So we had those borings and we could pump out those water. But then when the tap water came, it was simply like magic. And we were so happy to drink this tap water. But hey, just after a few years, we started saying that, no, this water is not pure. So we went into bottled water. And this bottled water we are having today. But the question arises again that what are we going to do tomorrow? If today we are, and I told you, if a country like India, who has more than a dozen river water system, and we are still going on to bottled water, what is going to happen tomorrow? This becomes a very big question. And what has happened during my years of study, these are a few pictures, that what have we been doing to this water? In fact, the river water, as I was saying, it was pretty pure if we go back over the ages or if we go back to its origin. But we have been doing all sorts of activities like discharging of untreated municipal waste, the compounds which are being discharged into the water. We are using, you can see the Hobi Ghats. Where do they go and wash their clothes? They'll go to the river water, and it is there that they are washing their clothes. Then the municipal sewage, it is very, in many of the cities, it is so common, that where is the entire sewage going? It is going to the river water. So it has gradually, the river water, it has become a garbage sink where we are just pouring in our garbage. So on one hand, we are deteriorating the quality of the river water. Like we did some of the studies. I'm not showing you the data. We worked on the TDS, the water quality, total dissolved solids, which we are doing even today for drinking water, like dissolved oxygen, the carbon dioxide content, nitrogen content, and heavy metals. That was a very important piece of work which we did. The heavy metals, they were also rising, because I was at a place which was very near to Muradabad, and we know that it is known as a metal city, where all these metals, they are run off into the river water. And gradually, then we are talking firstly about the river water quality, and then we are also talking about the biodiversity. Some pictures, what activities we are doing. So we started this work here. You can this is my research fellow who is just collecting the water samples. And this is from the Kalagar Dam. We had 6 different sites. I'm not going to those different sites. But when we came to Muradabad, as I was saying, that this was one of our experimental sites, we could see the water being polluted. This is a site of that Ram Ganga river where an annual fest is held. So just a few pictures to show that we are associated or linked up with our beliefs. And we do all sorts of activities like you can see here. We can do puja ceremony, we can do mundan ceremony, we can do the bathing activity. And all these activities are going on inside the water. And we can see this is the 3 pictures shows a pre-bathing picture, the bathing scene, and the post-bathing water. We did all the water quality. And this is a situation when people are coming to this fest. I'm just giving you the example of one fest which is being held near one riverside. And you can imagine the number of fests which we are having the year round and how people are actively taking part in these activities at the riverside of many of these rivers. In fact, when the present government came, then we started doing a lot. And here you see the activity, even using mics. My students were also present, where we tried to save the Ganga. It was a Swachh Ganga Abhiyan, which we are continuing till today. And we are trying to keep the river Ganga. And see, this is the when we try to stop these types of pollution activities and we try to collect them, just see the amount of garbage which was collected. But that was not all. Even then, the water was, you could see something like this after all that also. And as I was telling you, the puja and everything is being done. And the best part is, this is of course within inverted commas, that people, they're taking their bath in the river water. Here you can see them. Then after that, they will also wash their clothes. You know how detergent, because I was mainly interested in the biodiversity of the riverine system, because I worked on the fish health and fish quality. So here, when we are using these detergents, obviously we are also destroying the biodiversity. And we are using soap. You can see this is a very common scene. It's nothing new which I'm showing. But above all, the boy which you see in the center, he is also using, if he has to oil his hair, that also he's doing inside the river and dropping the oil. And this oil, it is very dangerous for the fishes. Of course, the oxygen, because oxygen is available in the form of dissolved oxygen. Once we pour this water, this oil in any manner, of course, we are stopping the oxygen from entering the water. And you know how holy the river water is. And this is the situation when we are offering our prayers in the holy Ganga, which we call. And this is the condition of the river. And if this is the condition of the river, I must say that this topic today, that the riverine heritage which we had, and if this is the condition what we are doing, what we should do to save it. and this, of course, is a picture that after doing all these activities, the bottle which he's taking, this person, he's going to collect this water, because this is the pure Ganga Jal, which is, when he was going to River Ganga, his family said, "Bhai, Ganga Jal to lete aana." So he's going to fill this Ganga Jal in this bottle, and this is the pure water, or the Ganga Jal, with which we are associated in a very holy manner. This he's going to take home. Another activity which we are doing, that is very common, though now we are taking care that any type of these goddesses, they are not being, they shouldn't be taken into the river water. I also had a publication on the effect of paint on the aquatic biodiversity, because all these goddesses, they are all being painted with color. So what these paints are doing to the biodiversity, water quality and biodiversity, this is a common site where we are taking our goddesses in that river water. Now, when we try to collect our fish, so just to see, this is the condition of the fish. We can hardly see the fish because the water has become so turbid that it is wrapped with mud all around. And this is the quality of the fish which we are getting. Those of you, of course, I'm a vegetarian, but those of you who are taking fish, I'm sure you would not like to consume these types of fishes, because this is the condition what we are doing to the fishes in the river water. And then this is what our findings when they were flashed in the newspaper. We could also, because then we moved on, of course, I'm not going into the details. We worked on the parasites of these fishes and how we could find an increase in the infection. We worked on a number of pathogens in these fishes and how they were increasing in these infected fish. Solid waste management, that is one of the major reasons for the deterioration of water quality, because the industries, we also worked on the industries on the riverside, and even in the city, they say that they are treating the effluents when they are coming out. But we have, I'm not showing them right now because it would be a very lengthy presentation, that the effluents which are being discharged into the treated, which they say effluents, they are in fact not at all treated. And the way they are transported out into the river, there is leakage in these pipes and all. And ultimately all this effluent, it is going into the river water. We had some of those tributaries where we had no fish or biodiversity at all. So then, I mean, all these are the investigations that from where we are getting all these pollutions. And Muradabad, I was telling, Katghar is that particular area where we did some of these findings, and it was again flashed in the papers that this, out of all those 6 sites, Muradabad was the most polluted site. Our data also in the Times of India, they were flashed that between Muradabad and Bareilly, it was most polluted on parameters like pH, temperature, dissolved solids, that is the TDS, dissolved oxygen, which is very important for the aquatic biodiversity, alkalinity, and hardness. And then we try to raise our voice. And we had collaborations with National Green Tribunal, with World Health Organization, and also there was a collaboration between NGT and I mean WWF and UK. A team had come from UK. There also we discussed about how we should try to save this river water. So, and above all, on one side, we are talking about saving of the river water. On the other side, in my own lifetime, during this about 3 decades of research on this river water, I could see that some of the tributaries on which I had worked about 30 years back, they had now dried out. So now, one after the other, on one hand, we're talking about saving the river water. We don't even have the proper water supply. What to talk about saving these? And this was another report when we could find some heavy metals like cadmium and arsenic in the fish tissues, and they indicated a cancerous condition in these fishes. And also these e-waste, now we have, that is again a different issue, that the entire waste which is being produced, it may be through the industries or even the cities waste or the sewage, and today e-waste has also become a very big problem. And we could also find some of the hospital waste and e-waste which were being just dumped into the river water. So this becomes a very tragic situation. Now this is the condition of the river side during one of these fests. And some more data, I'm not going into these data. Also the bird biodiversity or migration of the birds was affected due to the pollution of the river. So now I think we all know, and we are discussing, all the speakers I think would be talking about what is the actual condition of this river water, and how we have to save this heritage. And if we look into the data, we also find that the number of polluted river stretches, they are rising year by year. So if this is the condition, first of all, we have to put a stop to it, and then we have to decrease it. Only then we can save our riverine system. And here again, there is another news that how crores and crores of this garbage or water which is polluted, it is being flown into the river Ganga. So this is again the next stretch of work. When I told you that I reached Kanpur, and from Kannauj onward in the main river Ganga, also we did similar types of investigation, and here we have taken about 10 sites from where we did such type of investigation, and the results were similar. It may be river Ramganga, it may be river Ganga. So I feel that if we move on to other rivers also, the situation would be same. So what this is a news clipping from when I was in Kanpur. Parmat Ghat is an area just near the riverside of river Ganga. So we tried to, I mean, we had two teams. One was a scientific team and one was the NSS team. So both of these teams, here you can see me, this is one of the political leaders. He was also Suren Mathani. When he came to know that I had gone to the river to do something on the, to save the river water, the entire city was also very happy, and they came there and we tried to work on, and we adopted this ghat. So I was thinking that if we can do something, because now once considering that all our river water is polluted, we have to devise means that how we can save this heritage. So I would suggest that we must have some types of teams, and we should adopt, maybe the universities can take a lead, and especially those universities which are near the riverside, they can take a lead in adopting these specific areas and spreading a message that we have to save the river water. So once we start doing these activities, so here we started these activities, and we started, see here you can even see oath ceremony. I started this oath ceremony, just like we're taking oath for different types of activities. Here, this was an oath that we will save the river water. So we have to takes these types of initiatives. And what exactly, now the question is that what exactly should we do to save our riverine system? So I was telling you, this washing clothes or bathing animals is a very common practice. You know, you're taking any type of animal vehicle. When you reach the riverside, you try to bathe the animal in that water only. And not only that, even the vehicles, you know, Bail Gadi and Ikka Gadi and all of these, you try to clean them in with the river water only. And I think most of the institutions now, they are adopting, and the National Education Policy also says it has become an essential part of harvesting the rainwater. But I'm sorry, wherever I go and try to visit the different institutions, it is not actually harvesting. What they are doing, they're simply storing the rainwater. They're only making pits, only increasing the groundwater level. Of course, that is essential, but we must learn to use the harvesting of rainwater so that we can meet out our water requirements, because we must admit that in India we do have a scarcity of water also. So we have to think on these lines, and dams and embankments, they must be created. And I talked a lot about the contamination of rivers. We must save these rivers. And also I was, before coming here to Sagar, I was in Bhagalpur. And you know that last year we had the second wave of COVID-19, and it was a very panicky situation where the number of deaths were rising very rapidly. And maybe you read in the papers or in the news, but let me repeat it once again. To see the number of dead bodies, because in Bhagalpur again we had the river Ganga. There also the number of dead bodies we could see in the newspapers. They were simply being drowned in the river water, and they were reaching from Allahabad, they were reaching Bhagalpur. So if this is the situation that we are drowning these dead bodies, that too in that period when they were infected with COVID, and there were so many precautions that even the dead bodies were not being given to their family members. So in those conditions also, these dead bodies were being they were being dumped in the river water because there was nobody, either there was nobody to claim these bodies or they were not being given to the family members. So I think we should take some measures to prevent this also. Of course, we are not going to throw any type of wastes, oils or paints. That also I just showed you how we are using oils or paints which are down. It has these river waters, they are just a sink drain. I missed out the point on pesticides and fertilizers. Now, today, being an agriculture-based country, we are increasing the number of fertilizers and pesticides to increase the production. Those products which were not available around the year, today you get everything. And how do you get them? By using these fertilizers and pesticides. Of course, we can use them, but what are we doing to them? Ultimately, they are being drained into the river water. And these are the runoff into our water streams, and definitely they are going to destroy our water. So we have to, if we are thinking about the conservation or restoration of the riverine heritage, we must conserve these water bodies and biodiversity. We must change ourselves and stop this water pollution and save our water. And we must try to save every bit of water. It may be the river water or any type of water. Such type of activities are there. And I'm reminded about the words of the Honorable Prime Minister. From her origin till her final destination, Mother Ganga implores, beckoning her children from afar to listen to her woes. My son, my child, rid me of my filth, so all cleansed up I flow. This is the voice of River Ganga, that the pure Ganga which was once present, she wants to be pure once again. So I think that we must all not only pray, but we must also make our efforts to work together to purify the environment and keep it clean for years and years to come. And let us try to restore the riverine system, which is the main objective of this talk today here. And I'm sure that the contributions which are being made here, we shall definitely be able to do something about it. And minimize. As I'm sure that the efforts which we are going to put in today will definitely make us think on those lines, because my purpose was to identify those parameters due to which we are destroying our river system. So once we know the cause, then the remedy is in our hands. So I do hope that we are going to do something about it. And we shall definitely, with our efforts, we are going to save the river water. I'm very glad that Dr. Roy Chaudhary, he has been doing such a lot on this. And when he spoke to me that, Madam, last year we did something on river water, I expressed my interest, since I have been doing some work on this river water. Of course, I ran several projects over 1.8 crores on this aquatic pollution only, and I have data for different types of elaborate data on hydrobiological parameters, on heavy metals, on fish quality, on aquatic pollution and all. But we must utilize this data to save these riverine system. So I thank you very much for inviting me here and allowing me to give some of my views on how to save our riverine heritage. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you on behalf of SAIARD. It's really wonderful presentation. So this is one kind of brainstorming session, not in one kind of general webinar or conference type. So you have done a very wonderful job on river pollution sector. So here is also the persons from the ministries, also those who are working directly on that field. I mean the Namami Gange. So Devendra Mathuria, sir, just as a keynote speaker. So, sir, I would request you, if you say any points or any comments on the activities and how the activities we can be very initiate in our sectors also. Your perspective, sir, it's completely. I shall request, please.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. It was really a very nice presentation, and the most important part of the presentation was that it ended on a very, very optimistic note. And optimism is one thing which keeps us going. I must. I know Professor Gupta has had number of studies, commissioned under her, directly under her supervision. She is privy to a lot of data and all those things. But over the years, many of these issues are either being addressed or has been addressed. For example, when we say 118 towns, we started with the comprehensive feasibility assessment studies for 118 Ganga towns, and almost all towns have been populated with addressing or mitigating the municipal pollution aspects. We studied on the gap, and all those sewerage infrastructures have been put in place. I can because this August gathering has a lot of participants in terms of students and people from other backgrounds. So this becomes important. Out of those 118 towns, 97 towns required the sewerage infrastructure, and most of the projects either have been grounded or in another 3 or 4 months, about 70% of the projects will be in place. We have a very, very robust network of water quality monitoring, which monitors 73 parameters, water quality parameters, including heavy metals, pesticides, etc. And our partnering institutes are Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Boards. We have 97 manual water quality stations and about 76 real-time water quality stations, which throw real-time water quality monitoring data every hour. So a lot of big data is being created. All those analytics do tell us that yes, situation is moving with a positive trend. And that's why when I said those hitherto 4 polluted stretches in the river, they have turned to the non-polluted stretches. There is definitely some point sources of pollution. Muradabad happens to be one because of this metal industry. Kanpur, Prayagraj, Varanasi. At one point of time, Kanpur happened to be the focal, polluting city. All those sewerage infrastructures in place. Today, all 24 drains of the Kanpur have been tapped. All the STPs are functioning to the best of their capacity. Very infamous tannery infrastructure, tannery industries. CTP for that is in place, and a new CTP is also being constructed. So what I'm trying to say is that infrastructure either is being invented, is being constructed, and shall be in place. Partnership with the people, it is intrinsic to the Namami Gange program, as Dr. Gupta has said, that is being taken up. Issue of dead bodies, during the COVID, everyone is aware that there are protocols, there are centralized protocols of NHRM, National Human Rights Commission, for disposal of dead bodies. They are being followed. During COVID time, we had a very intensive using our own emergency powers. We had interaction with the states. We kept a very close watch. We commissioned a study also to IITR, Indian Institute of Toxicological Research, Lucknow, as well as health departments of the state. We monitored the water quality to study the impact of COVID virus. Number of the dead bodies, as per our count, as per administration count, was much less than what was reported in the media. I won't go into the figures because they become controversial. I don't want to raise those issues. Kanpur, I've said, yes, practice of disposal, and about a very pragmatic, very intensive effort for this disposal of idols during Ganesh Puja or Durga Puja, etc. That has been done, and it is being religiously followed by all. There are regulations, and we are aware that these synthetics contain a lot of pollution. To complement the efforts of the government in this direction, I must tell that dolphin, which happens to be topmost hierarchy in the aquatic wildlife, their numbers have been continuously increasing, and these are based on the census results of the dolphins. So increase in number of dolphins indirectly means that lower level species down below are increasing. So, and then we have 8 rounds of biomonitoring done, biological monitoring done. We are also monitoring E. coli, Escherichia salmonella, as well as obviously fecal coliform, total coliform. So a lot of data is there. We'll definitely like to interact more with Dr. Gupta on her studies, her results, and hopefully, and definitely we have a very, very intense collaboration with the NGT on all those matters, as well as with various high courts. As on date, I can assure everyone who is present that so far as Ganga mainstream is concerned, things are, dissolved oxygen levels are above the ambient 5 milligram per liter all over the stretch. BOD has problems in only 2 reaches, and fecal coliform has problems in downstream reaches somewhere in the West Bengal area. So that is the intensive combing that is going on in the Ganga basin, and replication of these efforts in the Ganga is also happening in other river basins. In fact, there are 19 other river basins in the country, and the government is proactively thinking of bringing similar kind of paradigms for other basins also. So I think that's it from my side. Dr. Vishwajit, you can take over. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Actually, as you were also working at the very ground level in implementing and making the policy sectors also. So thank you for your wonderful visions, and it definitely helpful for our participants too also. In that case, those who would like to work on that particular field, as I say in my previous lecture. So thank you. And once again, I would like to share my thanks to Nilima ma'am for her giving the valuable time within her busy schedule. And I saw she's still seated in your university chair, I think. So, okay, so Antara, I will request you to go forward with our, if anybody have any queries. I saw some hands have raised.
I also saw one hand.
Yes.
Somebody raised the hand here.
Yes.
No,
Sandeep.
so actually he has written in the chat box that it was a very good presentation. He
Oh,
loved
okay.
it. So he wanted
Okay.
to share.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm happy that you liked it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Antara, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Okay, so thank you so much, ma'am. Now we have Dr. Shuchita Sharmin. Dr. Shuchita Sharmin is a pure combination of academic, practical, and administrative experiences. She holds a teaching experience for more than 20 years. She is currently working as a professor at Department of Development Studies, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. She holds a PhD in Development Studies from University of Dhaka. She has a research experience in the areas of development studies, psychology, organization, business studies from different universities in Bangladesh, Japan, Switzerland, UK, Nepal, Malaysia, and India. She has been involved with the government, NGOs, UN agencies, UNDP, UNDESA, UN Women, UNICEF, etc., and INGOs in the capacity of a consultant for more than 18 years within Bangladesh and abroad. She has published 3 books and numerous number of journal articles and book chapters in national and international peer-reviewed journals and books. Over to you, ma'am, Dr. Shuchita Sharmin.
Thank you, Antara, and thank you, Syed. Thank you, Dr. Rai Chaudhary. It is an opportunity to talk in front of an august audience today, and I can see it's a lot of people, more than around 66, actually more than 66 now. And I had been hearing the previous speakers, and it's an opportunity to know so many information, and their presentation was amazing. From my side, I'm actually was traveling and I have just reached the hotel. However, I will share my part and my thinking, because the title is selected as Relevance and Restoration of Riverine Heritage. Certainly, from the previous discussions, we could find the relevance of the topic, and of course how we must be restoring the riverine heritage. And actually, if I start with rivers from the beginning of civilization, we can see that people had been gathering beside the rivers and started settling beside the rivers for their settled life. Earlier, when they had been roaming around, not settled anywhere, the life was very different. And even then, every time, the nature posed many different types of threat for the survival of humankind. But later on, what we saw is that while beside the rivers we had different civilizations, after the initiation of nation states, the situation somewhat changed, and the rivers had been the property of different countries in terms of their own share. And of course, we have upstream share of rivers in some countries, and we have downstream rivers in some other countries. And because, as we have seen, that it is about the civilization, we found that people actually had been engaging in different kinds of economic, social, cultural, political activities based on the rivers. And business was, from the very beginning, was there. And now, because of all these types of activities that we had been having based on our rivers, we found that we, the people in the society who started settling beside the rivers, we started exploiting our natural resources, our rivers. And we actually had been destroying the riverine ecosystem. So, because Antara has mentioned, I'm a professor of development studies, and of course, my background is also in psychology. I'll be trying to draw your attention to a few issues, starting from sustainable development in a way that when we are talking about sustainable development, we are actually talking about two things. One is conservation of nature, and the other is conservation of the achievement of developments. So, if we define sustainable development in these two ways, now the question comes, when it is conservation of the development achievements, then how we are considering conserving the nature. Actually, human beings, we are the people here in this planet. So the planet itself is what we inherited from our ancestors when we were born. And this is what we inherited from our ancestors, because they brought us in a situation where they had their innovations, when they had their own economic activities. And my previous speaker, she was referring to the earlier situation when our ancestors had been drinking water from the rivers. And the situation in course of time certainly has changed, and changed to a situation that now we are thinking of restoring not only just our natural resource, the rivers, but also the riverine heritages. So it is because of the economy, if we call it products. So there are three components: people, products, and the planet. And the rivers are the part of the planet and being exploited by the people for the products, the economic activities that we are engaging. So when thinking of development, we cannot stop, and we cannot think of stopping economic growth. Of course, if we think of economic development, that is more relevant. However, the nation states are rather considering economic growth to be more important in many cases than economic development. So this kind of economic development are planned, and these are happening through the interventions. And in course of time, what we see is that the interventions are to exploit the nature sometimes in favor of economic growth. Sometimes the interventions are for the development of the people in different other ways. But sometimes this kind of interventional developments for changes, for betterment, turn into disasters. So when I'll be talking about a few initiatives that we found in our country that turned into disasters, and based on the people who are having their heritage and culture beside the rivers. I have a very long experience of working in the chore areas. Chore areas are the isolated island bars on the riverbed, on the river basin, and sometimes the attached riverine areas that are subject to erosion and subject to different kinds of disasters, and that experience flood as well. So in our country, in Bangladesh, what we see is that people actually, because our population density is very high, people do live in those river islands and, of course, in the attached areas by the rivers, where some 2-3 decades back, Bangladesh was named the country of flood. And the people experienced severe floods. And later on, what we saw is that it was rather less flood, but river erosion that was causing more and more trouble to the people, and people's livelihoods and their survival was at stake. So there are two parts of a natural resource like rivers. It has got its positive side, that it is helping people to survive through providing the supports that is essential for people to survive by the rivers. At the same time, the disasters may lead to the destruction of lives and society and the people. So in that way, in 1980s, what we saw is that with World Bank and 16 other donor agencies, they planned for the controlling of flood by the river sites and river islands. And they thought that will be the best solutions for the problem of flooding in the rivers. And under the flood action plan, they built dams by the coastal areas and by the sides of the rivers. However, this is one example that I wanted to tell you, because it turned into not into a development, but it turned out to be a disaster, because people who had been living in the island bars, they found that these dams were actually destroying their ecosystem, destroying the livelihoods. They actually had been having huge impact. And as a result, we had 23 volumes of a book which showed the negative consequences of that. 23 volumes of a book which had the negative implications of flood action plan. So you see, like it's always the case that we want to control nature for our betterment, for the betterment of the people and the economy, but nature has its own way of behaving. Secondly, I'd like to talk about another example, because it is, when we are talking about sustainable development, actually we are referring to people, planet, and products. In the river basin areas, in the river islands that we call chore areas, there people live, and these people are the poorest of the poor, and these people actually are least bothered about many different things, many different services and facilities, and they are not much aware about their rights and what they should get. Rather, they should live a life that is very close to nature. This is how the people are there. However, many different NGOs decided to work with them with the feeling that these people should get livelihood options, alternative livelihoods options, and thus their lives will be better, and they will have access to different mainland, so government facilities and all those. Actually, these people, as I've said, they have their own natural creativity, and what we found when I was working in the field, I found that these people, some of them had very unique creative thinking. They were making potteries, they were making hand fans with threads and wool, and all these were their own, their own way of expressing their creativity. But because the NGO people, they found that, okay, this can be one way of enhancing their livelihoods, what they did is they started commercial production of those handmade mats and the hand fans. As a result, you know what happened. Those people had their creative mind, but their creative soul died because the designs were given by the NGOs and they could not further work on what they had in their mind. They could not express their own soul. The thing is, we had the culture, we had our people, we had our heritage. In different ways, we are losing those. And in the riverine area, there are uniqueness. It is the human beings and their societies and the ecosystem that we inherited from our ancestors. But again, how we are actually not nourishing them but destroying them sometimes, and how we have to look into it is the question of the time. And I again appreciate the initiative by SAIARD and feel that, of course, at the regional level, because of course we have SAARC Cultural Center, Sri Lanka, and we have India here, and we have many other participants from all over the world. I believe this conference, this workshop, whatever that you name it, it will be useful to ensure that the regional cooperation is strengthened and we work together as the people who had been before and as the people who we are now. The people who were there before the nation states were established, independent nation states came up. And now in the independent nation states, we have to think in a regional way because it is our region and we have to work together for conserving our natural resource, our rivers, our riverine heritages. With these few words, I'd like to again thank SAIARD, thank Dr. Raichaudhuri, and thank Antara and all of the participants for hearing me for so long. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If any of the participants have any query or anything to share, you can share those or you can write in the chat box also. Anybody? Okay. I don't think there's any question raised. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the thoughtful presentation of yours. Thank you so much.
Antara, I have one question for Professor Suchita. Well, these charts, as you have been saying, these riverine islands, which house the native population, is there because in Ganga Basin also we have, while carrying out this documentation for various heritage, natural heritages, it was found that there are riverine islands which are either inhabited or uninhabited, and they are essential for their resting, sometimes nesting grounds for aquatic wildlife. For example, ghadials and tortoise and these kind of otters. No. So is there any policy, because we don't as yet have a policy for management of these riverine shards or islands or doars as they're called. So is there any policy in Bangladesh on these very kind of islands, because they must be very prevalent in the deltaic part?
Actually, we don't have these islands that we have here are very small islands, and I was actually referring to those river islands. We have river islands in both the parts, in the northern part, northern Jamuna River, and of course in the southern part as well, where we have the Tetulia River, which is in the estuary of the Bay of Bengal. So actually these are very small islands, though densely populated, and they have their own people, and the varieties that you are talking about are there in the offshore islands. There we have some policies, and you will be able to find those in the ICZMP, Integrated Coastal Zone Management Policy. There we have all those issues incorporated. But for the Jamuna River shore areas, it is about the people and their livelihoods that we find to be at stake due to river erosion and flags, mostly. Could I answer you, sir?
Well, thank you. In fact, see, there is ever going conflict of understanding between environmentalists and whenever settlements are permitted in these islands. So I was just wondering if there is any policy we can make use of that policy, because we are also proactively looking at this policy paradigms for these shahs.
So are you talking about the settlement of people in these islands?
Yeah, true.
Oh, actually, because of the very active river basin that we have in Jamuna, what we see is that we have the policy of the government, which is called Shokosti Poyosti Ain. It is a legal term. And here, the people who become subject to erosion and lose their lands, when a new island is grown, they get the priority in getting land in that islands. In that way, we had it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If anyone else has any question.
Anybody else? Okay, ma'am, I don't think there's any question raised further. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Andhra. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so our next speaker is Dr. Anindya Basu. She has been working as assistant professor in the Department of Geography, Diamond Harbour Women's University since 2017. Previously, she served as an assistant professor in Women's Christian College, Kolkata. Dr. Basu also acts as guest faculty in University of Calcutta and Jadavpur University. A host of national level workshops and seminars have been organized by her. She has been a rank holder in bachelor's and master's degree programs in geography from University of Calcutta and UGC Junior Research Fellowship recipient. She has also received a PG diploma in RSGIS from Jadavpur University. Her research interests lie in socio-political geography, urban environmental issues, and tourism geography. Dr. Basu presented a number of papers in national and international conferences and seminars and received seminar-related grants from UGC and IGU. She has published around 50 research papers and book chapters till date. I cordially request you to give the presentation, Dr. Anindya Basu. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank the organizers for considering me to be the part of such August gathering. Since I'm pretty tongue-tied to be amidst such luminaries, I would like to take resort to my presentation, which mostly comprises of pictures and maps. So let me share my presentation. I guess the presentation is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Thank you. Now, today the topic of my deliberation is Little Europe in Bengal, urban heritage tourism alongside riverbank of Hooghly. Now, this is an ongoing part of my work. And in this, two of my colleagues are also actively involved, Nobendu Shekhar Kaur and Moumita Kundu. Like we all know that the rivers are cradles of civilizations. The Mesopotamian civilization, the Egyptian civilization, our very own Indus Valley civilization, all has originated from the river cradles. And even today, the river Ganga or Ganges, as we refer as, is the very backbone of Indian economy and culture. And if we look into the riverine heritage, then probably we can find several such instances across the course of River Ganga. And the most prominent one that comes to our mind is various snapshots of the Ghats of Varanasi. Now, before going into the riverine heritage, a few words about what heritage is all about. Heritage is nothing but having a sense of pride of our own past. And it has got two basic elements. One is the tangible one, like the factors like architectures, artifacts, etc. And the other segment is intangible or experience-based, which involves oral traditions, skills, or food elements, stuff like that. So heritage tourism actually tries to portray these factors towards people who are interested in knowing about the areas which they are not really aware about. And currently this heritage tourism sector is the one of the fastest growing segment worldwide. And Indian government has also taken initiative to tap this sector, and it has initiated a scheme in 2015, which is known as RIDAI, or Heritage City Development and Augmentation Yojana. Now, as I already referred to the riverine heritage scape of Benares, which is very popular. If I go into the colonial part, the colonial heritage segment, then when we refer about Indian colonial segments, then probably Goanese or Portuguese, where we have Portuguese settlements over there, or Pondicherry, where we have French settlements over there. Those pictures are more commonly known to us. But over in here in West Bengal, we have a deadly combination of colonial riverine heritage along River Hooghly, but it has been long been underrated. However, I would like to point out that in West Bengal, heritage tourism is not only limited to colonial riverine tourism, it has got other sectors too. And West Bengal, which is the eastern, one of the eastern states of India, has several districts which hosts various segments of heritage tourism sites involving Hindu architecture, Islamic architecture, and European traditions also, out of which Hooghly district is one of the prominent one. Now coming to my Little Europe section, which is a river-based heritage tourism sector, it involves several trade ports actually, which has now been important township areas of West Bengal. The important ones are Bandel, which has been a Portuguese stronghold, Chinchura, which has been a Dutch den, the Chandanagar, which has been a French colony, Srirampur, which has been the house of the day. Besides, obviously, we have the British colonial imprints in Kolkata and Barakpur. Very sadly, we have lost few instances or few areas, like we had presence of Austrians in Halisahar, we had presence of Germans in Bhadrashar and Rishra, but the remnants are not present right now. And we have to ensure that we don't lose these riverine heritages anymore. Now, how did the Hooghly district or this stretch of Hooghly River became important? As we all know, Vasco da Gama first came to India through the western coastal side. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but which slide you are now showing? Because we can see the first slide.
Okay, then just.
Now we can see the third one. It's just jumped to the third one.
Okay, fine. Just let me shift to the PDF mode, then night bit would be better for the thing. Just one second. Well, this was the first one. This was the second one. Nothing much was there. So now I am now into this slide actually, where we can see all the segment or the circuit where we are interested about right now. And if we move into the point that why this stretch of Hooghly River is very important to us, or why we are interested in it. Initially, the western coast of India was discovered by the Europeans. But as the transportation, inland waterways became the prominent transportation route, the importance shifted towards the eastern sector, and the Hooghly River became the center of all actions. From that, in present times, the riverine transportation is not that much important. So has we lost all the importance that was attached to the riverine landscape? Not really, because other than economic values, there are societal values, the cultural values, the aesthetic values, which drive the entire river corridor. So presently, we are now into a monument-centric approach, while we are all trying to take efforts in preserving the architectural monuments which are left along the river course. But we have to believe in one thing, that river is not only a natural resource or only a cultural resource. It is a mixture of both. And to make riverine heritage viable, we have to take into account both the factors. The river as a natural resource has to be maintained, and obviously we have to take care of the architectural part also. For the today's presentation, I have mostly concentrated on the architectural aspects of the area. Now, if I come to my stretch, before going into the 4 specific points, the stretch starts with Tribeni and Bashberia townships, which are not directly linked with colonial heritage, but definitely there are instances of wonderful architectural structures representing Islamic architectural style and terracotta architectural style, as you can see in the slides. And from that, if we move into our first point, that is Bandel, which is a strong Portuguese stronghold. It hosts the oldest church of Bengal, which is popularly known as the Bandel Church. It has got the Jubilee Bridge, which is one of the oldest operating cantilever bridge, which just in 2017 has been discontinued. And then very nearby, we have this Hugli Imambara, which represents an entirely different architectural style, but it has a magnificent, majestic presence overlooking the river, as we can all see from the slide. But how we are treating the heritage complexes, if you can see the map briefly also, these red color areas represents the heritage units. And the green patches are the open spaces, and the yellow ones are the residential areas. In case of Bashberia area, we can see that the heritage units are basically standalone ones. They have not been maintained as a heritage scape. While in case of Bandel Church area, since it's located much near to the riverine tract, the amount of open space nearby is pretty high. But on the other side, if we just cross the heritage units, then it has got the dense residential area. So in case of West Bengal, there is one problem which we would encounter in other places also, that the heritage units are maintained as an individual buildings, but not as a heritage complex or a continuous entity. So coming to the next place, which is Chinchura, which is a Dutch Dane. It also initially flourished as a trading post. And the Dutch during their tenure over West Bengal, they maintained a very friendly relationship with the British. That's why they didn't suffer much during the war periods. And their architectural monuments are pretty well preserved in West Bengal. The major ones being the Armenian Church of St. John the Baptist. Then there is the Dutch Cemetery, which is now a part of the protected site list of Archaeological Survey of India. And we have this interesting tomb of Susanna Anna Maria. And with this enigma's lady, Suzanne, we have other cultural relations also, because the Ruskin Bond's famous novel, Susanna's 7 Husbands, was inspired from this very lady. And we also had a Bollywood movie called Satkhun Maaf based on this novel. So the colonial heritage is not only limited to the colonial period, but affects our present times also. Now moving on to the next slide. These structures involve various faiths, shows various kinds of styles, amalgamation of various styles of architectures, like the Motijil Mosque is there, which was built long back in 1830s and is still functional. The case is same with Shondeshwar Jew Temple, which was patronized by the Dutch governor of that time, and even now it is very well maintained. And we have this elegant British clock tower in this Danish, in this Dutch Dane also. And here we have a very interesting case of heritage reappropriation. All these three actually were beautiful colonial buildings or mansions, which has now been reappropriated into educational institutions. There is the Hugli Collegiate School, there is the Hugli Mohsin College, and the Hugli Madrasa. But they have maintained the architectural facade very well, and the utility of the buildings have definitely changed. Then we have several colonial buildings which are now being utilized as administrative offices and museums. And these are the glimpses of private houses. These were the mansions of a rich Bengali trading community of that time. Though these are the ones which are being well maintained, but there are many which are in a state of shamble right now, because these are not being maintained by the governmental agencies, but these are private ones. So if we take a bird's eye view of the entire area, then we would see the scattered heritage sites which have been marked in the map. And this is the interesting green patch, or the Maidan area, which is popularly referred as. It now acts as the playground for the young people or the children. But during the Dutch period, it served as the vegetable garden, or the provision of food came from over here. So over the time period, the utility of the place has changed. And this is the Dutch villa, which was the circuit house of the Dutch. Then it became the circuit house of the British, and even today it serves as a governmental circuit house. But we have lost one important structure just after the British took over the Dutch authorities. It was the Dutch fort of Gustava. We don't have any remnants left of that mansion right now. And next we have Chandanagar. Chandanagar, as it is the most common site out of the four that I am presenting today. It presents a slice of France, actually. The French bastion developed during the Mughal era, and it reached its pinnacle during Governor Dupleix. But due to the Franco-British rivalry, many of the architectural wonders suffered pretty badly, but few are still there, present in the Strand area. I would refer to the Strand area. As we can see from the map, this is the map of the Chandanagar municipality. And this eastern section was actually the initial part of the French Chandanagar, as we popularly refer it to. And this segment along the Hooghly River stretch, along the Strand area, most of the heritage units or the heritage mansions are located over here. If you move on to the next map, we would be able to see that these have been enlisted, that what specifically which mansions or which architectural wonders are along the river bank. The important ones being the Collège du Play, the Sacred Heart Church is nearby. We have the very old hotel of Hotel de France, which has been obviously discontinued over time. We have the Chandanagar Library. We have Nitya Gopal Smriti Mandir. We have the French cemetery nearby. So these are various architectural riverine entities that are present nearby. And if we enlist the architectural wonders present, we have broadly classified them into three categories. One is the pre-colonial legacies, which were present before the colonial entities came. And the most important segment obviously are the colonial legacies, which involves, as I already stated, a few major buildings, and you can see the snapshots of those in the right side, which have got various degrees of significance. Most of them have been well maintained. We have lost few of them, and here also we have got a kind of cultural heritage reappropriation. Many museums, many schools or colleges have come up in those ancient buildings. And another important or interesting aspect is the lifestyle legacies which are involved over here. As I already pointed out, that heritage is not only the tangible ones, but also the intangible ones. And it includes the factors like the pottery locality, popularly known as the Kumorpara, which is there. Then we have the Tumi lighting, or the lighting industry, very famous in Chandanagar over there. Besides two important carnivals that happen in Chandanagar, one is the Christmas festival, obviously, and the other is its native Jagadhatri Puja related festival, which is celebrated almost like a carnival over there. So these are a few intangible aspects which come with the heritage aspect of Chandanagar. Now, coming to the last point of our heritage tourism, that is Srirampur. In this case, it is the stronghold of the Danes, and they had bit of initial hiccups. Like the other entities, they had a smooth transfer of power from the Mughal entities, but the Danes had tried for a couple of times, and then they finally established their hold in 1755 and continued till 1845, and after that they shifted the authority to the British. And during that phase, during these 100 years, they obviously created several architectural spaces in the township. And another important aspect that is related with Srirampur is this place is not only limited to architectural wonders. The educational enlightenment also came along with the Baptist missionaries. The most famous one being William Carey. He established printing press. He established educational institutes. So the horizon, the knowledge horizon, also got expanded in Srirampur during the colonial phase. And now from the map, we can see a few important structures like the St. Olaf's Church, the Denmark Tavern, the Srirampur College, and this is the Goswami Rajbari over there. Again, a similar kind of listing has been done. We have the pre-colonial legacies involving several temples of various architectural styles. And besides, we have colonial legacies involving houses like the Danish Government House, the port area, the St. Olaf Church, like already I mentioned, the Srirampur College, the Danish Cemetery, and all that. So if we move to the next slide, another interesting aspect of Srirampur is the initiative to maintain the heritage is greatly visible in this area, because not only the local government or the national government, but the authorities from Denmark have taken very positive steps to improvise the status of the architectural units, and they have divided the entire area into two zones. This red marked zone is the core area, and this is obviously the periphery area. And they have kind of, though there is no legal binding, but they have kind of stated that no further development of modern architecture would be allowed in the core area to preserve the facade of the colonial period. And if we look into the map in our left side, it has got a very segmented view. In the central part, we have the administrative or commercial buildings of the colonial time. In the eastern section, we have the academic and the religious units, and the scattered individual buildings are present in the western part. So Srirampur and Chandanagar both have got a very well-defined heritage mapping. So in terms of representing the heritage, these two towns could showcase their heritage best to the tourists who are interested in heritage tourism. And these are the glimpses that how efforts are being taken to restore the glory of the old architectural units presently. Now, for a foodie like me, heritage is not only limited to architecture, it extends to food also. And in Srirampur and Chandanagar, in both the areas, I have cited two examples. Firstly, coming to the Srirampur area, Denmark Tavern was there, which was a Danish eatery long back in the 18th century, and now presently it has been revamped, and in the same name as Denmark Tavern, it has reopened, and it serves delicious Danish delicacies. And the other one is Bito, which has Bheto, what we call in Bengali. It is definitely serves Bengali cuisine, but the environment in which it serves is of the heritage court canteen that was present during the colonial period. And in case of Chandanagar, we have the Das Bakery, which even today bakes the authentic French loaves, and we have the Jolbhora Sandesh from Surya Kumar Modok, which was savored by the Europeans during the colonial age. Now, coming to the last part of my presentation, that, well, we all know these things or these areas are there in our little Europe. But how does it influence the stakeholders, that is the tourists and the local people? We have surveyed both the tourists, national and international, or tourists and the local people. And the most interesting fact that has come out that they are very much aware of the potential that these areas hold, and they are eager to visit the area, know more about the architectural grandeur, the historical significance. But the main obstacle that they have faced is infrastructural loopholes. And they have cited that definitely the day trip was a value for money for them, but they wanted to have better portrayal of history. They wanted guided tours, they wanted better marketing strategies, but definitely the interest to explore the place was there. And now coming to the other point, that is the local people or what they feel at the grassroots. The most heartening fact is that the younger section, they are very much interested in the upcoming heritage tourism sector, the riverine heritage tourism sector, because they feel that it could be an area of employability to them. But there are four major areas of concern. They feel that heritage would be commodified to a greater extent. It will lose its authenticity. There would be gentrification where the poor residents of the area would be driven to improve the facade of the region, and there would be the resultant othering of the natives. So as they have those fears, they cannot really wholeheartedly accept the heritage drive or the marketing strategy. But if this fear can be removed from them, if the governmental authorities take care of these factors, then definitely the local people are eager to take part in the riverine heritage tourism. So this has been enlisted in the SWOT analysis also, where the strengths of the area, the weaknesses, as I have already pointed out, have been laid down. And definitely this area is provides a great opportunity, because we can present it as a tourist circuit, a colonial riverine tourist circuit, and it would definitely attract the tourists who are interested in knowing the places. They're not only gazing at the beautiful natural sites, but they are interested in knowing the
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Rohit Jaiswal. Hello.
Yeah.
Mrs. Jaswal, we can hear you.
Okay, so what we are just summing up, that we are trying to figure out a sustainable heritage tourism model so that the community-based riverfront urban heritage tourism can be put forward for the tourists who are interested in visiting the area. And maybe a destination branding would help to attract more tourists. So that's all from my side. These are the major works which can be referred for further inquiry. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If anybody has any question, you can ask those. Anyone?
What is this SWOT analysis? What is this SWOT analysis? Can you explain it again?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. SWOT analysis is it's a kind of acronym. It refers to the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Any phenomena has got four sides to it. The positive ones involving the strength and the opportunities, and the negative sides involves the weaknesses and the threats.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I think there's no question raised further. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. Next, we have Dr. Gaurav Raheja. He is a professor of architecture, a design thinker, and a well-known expert on universal design, accessibility, and social inclusion from IIT Roorkee. He has recently joined as a head of Department of Architecture and Planning, and also a professor in charge for inclusion. Professor Raheja is a strong advocate of human-centric and social design approaches with a focus on invisible populations, including children, persons with disabilities, elderly, and other diverse population groups. He has been a key advisor and a consultant for various accessibility projects and initiatives under Accessible India campaign, including Audit of Prime Minister's Office, New Delhi Railway Station, IGI Airport, among several others. Recently, he has been appointed as a consultant to the National Institute of Urban Affairs, NIUA, to revise the harmonized guidelines and standards for accessibility. He has also been a consultant for the Ministry of Railways to draft the accessibility guidelines for Indian Railways. Dr. Raheja was awarded the Emphasis Universal Design Award in 2010 by the National Center for Employment of Disabled People. He has been guiding doctoral research in the domain of accessibility, universal design, and human-centric issues of inclusion in diverse urban contexts. I cordially request you to give the presentation, sir. Over to you, Dr. Gaurav Raheja.
Thank you, Madam Kundu. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. So first of all, very warm thanks to all the audience and especially SAIARD, Dr. Vishwajit Roy for inviting me to this August gathering. I was listening to the past one presentation and was quite delighted to see the kind of work I think people are doing truly in this particular area, which frankly speaking is not really an area which I have been practicing too much about, but I'm just trying to build a small narrative here. I think the only qualification that I find for me to be here today is that I'm born in the land of Ganga, because I'm born in the city of Haridwar, and I'm seeing people from the city of Kolkata, which is where the journey of this water happens. And also by virtue of having been a student of architecture, I think we are all nurtured in a particular way that we become sensitive to this word called heritage. So I think I would like to share my few thoughts on this particular subject. I'm just thinking, should I share a presentation or not? Because I've just put in few text around as a supporting text to build in few perspectives, not really to share it as a presentation as such, but let me do that since we have this. Okay, so what I'll do is I don't think I have rights to share. Okay, now I can. Can you all see my slides? You can see it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I've broadly titled because let me already share with the audience that I'm not really going to speak too much into the complexities of this debate, but while we are aware of it, we have tried certain attempts and worked for it also. But I still want to make a loud thinking as I'm sharing my few thoughts with you, right? So I've just titled it in a very simple way. Do we have a value for our rivers, right? And how do we connect to the land around the rivers? In fact, I feel very nostalgic about Kolkata because I've truly walked the length and width of that river. Got drenched in the rains of walking on the Prinsep Ghat, on Babu Ghat, and the Strands Bank, the Belur Math, the Dakhineshwar Temple, etc. And for me, actually, the memory of Kolkata is not really about living in any sheltered accommodation, but is about my journeys along the Ganga. And sometimes, therefore, I feel the idea of heritage, as Madam has already shared that word, the intangibles, is where the center lies, right? The tangible will always have a time-based factor of decay, right? You make a building, you make a temple, you make a ghat. The river is an idea of continuity. And the idea of heritage also, if you see from one lens of history, actually is an idea of tradition. So traditions must live while the heritage must evolve. And I see Mr. Sandeep has a question. He's raised a hand, right? Is there something that you want to say, Sandeep? Okay, if there is anything you want to stop me here and ask something, you can do that. Okay. So I'm basically titling this as what is the value of the value that we are discussing about. And why I'm keeping a topic like this, when I actually heard a saint saying, the value is a value only if we value the value of that thing. I know it sounds slightly complex, but very simple. The value is a value only if we value the value in it, right? So now the whole question that comes to us is in the urban context of our lives. Earlier, the settlements happened around river, and river remained an active center. Rivers were worshipped. Even now they are worshipped. But the connect is very different. And therefore, there is a transformational value change that we are experiencing. Now, therefore, when I put this thing in front of you, today we are also, while we are talking about rivers and we are talking about restoration of the heritage, essentially we are concerned in one way or the other about how do we sustain the idea of this convergence between river and people, river and society, river and culture, river and life at the larger perspective. Now, rivers have always been, but they have always been changing also the way we interact with them. There was a time when we were only worshipping rivers, but then there came a time when we, along with the worship, we also started washing clothing into that. We also started doing effluent discharge into them. We also started tourism around it in the name of recreation, adventure, and different kinds of pockets and different kinds of tourism. It's the same Ganga in the Rishikesh where it supports the river rafting adventure. It is the same Ganga in the Haridwar which supports the idea of congregation of millions of people. It is the same Ganga along which both in Haridwar and in Varanasi becomes the center of life and death. So any new birth and the end of life also happens around river, right? So the connect with people, I believe, has various strands, and that is where it's very important to see in what way the heritage is connected. It is the same Ganga which is offering us energy through the Tehri Dam, where it has been actually bound by a human intervention, and Tehri Dam is also building a tourism circuit around it. I'm nobody to qualify to say whether it is good or bad, but what definitely we know is it has impacted the whole landscape of the entire setting, right? And it comes at a cost of taking away some from the heritage as well. Even if it is adding some new to the heritage by changing the river landscape, it has taken away several villages inside it whose heritage is now lost. Incidentally, I know of a couple of people who I've met who feel not only the displacement, but they can cry at what they lost. So nonetheless, since we are all in today's world fascinated by one word called growth, and I keep remembering the word, growth for the sake of growth is nothing but cancer, right? Even cancer cells are nothing but growth, unwanted growth of cells. So is the urban development around the river supporting the idea of river sustainability and preserving the heritage that the river had as a value? Therefore, my whole central theme for this whole discussion is value. Today, rivers are also supporting poverty. Rivers are also the reason that around the poverty-stricken lands, at least people can grow. And the town that I come from, IIT Roorkee, has a story of river and the engineering which started around rivers, because it was about building the canal from Haridwar till Kanpur by the British because there was a famine, the need for food. And the building of this canal by the same British, who on the other side had certain other forms of actions, but this is something which connects us in a very humane way. That this is how this entire land became so fertile that today agriculture could mushroom for the past 100+ years, and the whole idea of famine went away. But today, do we also promote the idea of health and well-being? The rivers are the landscape around which, if people walk, do the pranayam, do the yoga, can actually become centers of well-being, provided we are able to connect with them. So I'll not go much into these details, but I'm just bringing the colors of sustainability here through the SDG goals is something which can very well be understood. But the problem is, if we do it one independent of the other, I don't think we'll ever be able to achieve the sustenance of the idea of restoration with these rivers as well. So primarily what I wish to communicate here is that first is truly to really understand, and heritage, even as an English word, lettered word, we may understand one thing, but in every context, it has a different value. So therefore, I've written the word value in all my slides, but I want to add to every them in each slide is the value of context. Right? So when you actually have a river flowing from the Himalayan context, so here you have the Himalayas, and here you have the river down, you have a very different context in the state of Uttarakhand. As it goes into the plains of Varanasi here, it gets a very different context from where it goes to Bihar and reaches to Kolkata here. And today, you sitting in different parts of the world and we sitting here are able to actually see different forms of heritage values here. Right? And what is important is, therefore, each town, each form of settlement around each river requires to be understood. So I am first of an understanding that making any intervention without understanding the core is actually a bigger burden than actually solving a problem. So, and as you also see, if I break this word, heritage itself has a word age into it, Rivers for us are timeless, but can we build for timelessness is a question, right? And within the heritage word, if you see, it's also inherited, right? There is something we inherit from the past. And why, therefore, it is further important is, the question is, what are we doing to uphold that value, right? Who has the power to take decision? Rivers are autonomous by nature, but they have been intervened by humans here, there, etc. So it's truly important to see who can influence this value. Primarily, what I've seen in a couple of studies is the two very significant agents are religion and politics, right? I don't want to again dissect these two words too much, but we have all understood how the same political agency can transform the river, and how the same political agency, by virtue of neglect or use of religion as a tool or as an agent, can actually transform a different value to it. For example, every evening on the river Ganga in the city of Haridwar or wherever the temples are around it has a ritual. So there is a religion brings a ritual value to it, which is performed, which becomes a congregational activity. And by the idea of continuity of that activity, a certain value is realized. The value of people's connectedness, the value of people being there to support the idea of religion, and considering the river as that mother, as the savior of life, and that connect re-establishment. If this value retains, only then the value of the river will perhaps could be preserved. We would not be able to restore or preserve if the entire idea of the water itself is taken as water, which is just mere water. The distinction between water and the Ganga water for us is the religious value that we are associated with it, isn't it? And likewise, there is a very important thing which I have always observed whenever we have attempted to do studies on the urban landscapes of the river Ganga. We've always found there is a religio-politics also that happens around. So as you see, politics is an important agent here. So I'm not using politics as a negative idea here, but politics is important because without political will, this value of rituals cannot also be realized many a times because it needs a support value. So the political intent is not there, or the religious intent is not there. The continuity of this heritage connect can definitely shift and change. If I move further, this leads to the culture and activities as tools. So you must have seen many rivers, and today we are talking about river interlinking projects also. Why is it so important today? It's because we want to, if you have this kind of a plan of a river, the kind of activities that are centered around its edges, which in an urban design theory, if you see Kevin Lynch, talks about how those activities can become nodes. So the activities of vending, the activities of selling flowers, the activity of some kind of play areas, the activity of yoga and health related activities, the activities of food and eateries, etc. And this is where the idea of planning, the idea of politics, the idea of integration, and the whole idea of management comes into picture, which is where I feel that these activities together build a culture of a place, and which I feel in the restoration of heritage, if I can use that word, it is the value of place making. Right. For example, the Sabarmati River in Ahmedabad has today turned into a place. There are debates about whether it was done in the right way or not. I will not get into that right now. But one thing is for sure, it has transformed into a place where people come now in a different way. They engage, they sit, they chat, they do activities, etc. Likewise, if you go on the Marine Drive on the river as a waterfront, if not riverfront in Mumbai, you have a completely different experience of the modern urban landscape. So this integration between the city and its life as a culture of a place, the question is how can we build rivers into rethinking this urban heritage is an important tool. That is the materiality and architecture of things around the river. So whether you have the temple forms, whether you have the ghats, and you have some kind of skylines around the rivers of different cities, you'll find that this also has a city value to us. At night, sometimes you just see it illuminated, right? In the day, you see the sunlight or the sun rising from this whole thing. It's part of the architectural heritage and a material experience. So whether it is the red sandstone steps or the white sangamarmar and the marble of the temple floors, or it is any other semantic value that I would like to talk here, is this materiality and architecture builds a semantic value, which is also part of heritage to understand when we are talking about its restoration. And therefore, the question of restoration and relevance of heritage of rivers and their conservation, I think is not even a question. It's something which needs still to be a center of human activity, because without this water, without the connect with this water, unfortunately, human life cannot exist. The challenge that we are facing today is that with the densities that we have, with the lack of political intent that we see, with the chaos that we have created sometimes in our own religion, is therefore a larger question of how can we realize this value that actually has so much value. And this, to me, seems unthinkable unless we truly start doing the urban management in a certain way, you know. And one of the very critical aspects, therefore, I feel is the physical and the spatial planning of cities, which maps around it, And second is to study the idea of movement, which is mobility. Rivers support movement. River is navigable or non-navigable, whichever is the case, but around it, life moves, right? And movement to connect with that whole idea becomes very critical in realizing a value, which I call it as the value of its accessibility, right? The value of its accessibility in terms of building, because if people cannot move to the rivers, if we cannot plan in a way that they can support the rivers, rather what is happening is our planning, whether it is ad hoc or whether it is master plan, so whether it is consciously done or whether it is done out of ignorance, it is impeding into the idea of heritage. It is disturbing our heritage. It is killing the heritage by putting industries next to these rivers, by allocating landforms, land spaces in the master plan with these kind of values. This water is not meant for this. And therefore, later we have these problems. For example, Kanpur as a city is unfortunately a dark spot in the landscape of River Ganga. It is a pity that the water touches from there with the effluent from the tanneries and reaches the Varanasi worshippings, and still does not lose the heritage value of being used as a nectar or as a spiritual water, but it goes through these kind of mobility and planning systems. So it's perhaps very important, if we want to truly retain this value, we need to talk this about. And therefore, in an ideal sense, if we finally wish to achieve anything which is sustainable as heritage, I personally feel it is not governments, it is not us as architects, planners, it's ultimately the people and citizen participation that we all as stakeholders must facilitate in order to realize as a inclusive value, as a value of inclusion that I wish to communicate, that we are all one. The water is one, the spirit is one, and the people and the culture of this country is perhaps one. And that oneness can be experienced both in spatiality and in society, perhaps through the connect with these rivers as waters. So having said this, I quickly want to show you a few visuals where from a certain example that I'm just wanting to show. This is the Grand Canal, and I'm just saying Venice, which is a European heritage, right? There's a beautiful canal that you see in waters going through that city. So when I actually walk through that city, and I'm just telling you how this is the old and this is the new. So you see, this is the old part of the Venice, which is all historic structures, and Marco is visible from here. And there's a bridge that is done recently in 2008 or new, which was done by an eminent world famous architect called Santiago Calatrava. And why I am showing you this example is that new activities happen in the intent of old by taking things together. But what was the challenge with this new one? So I realized that when people were moving as tourists, because you have to arrive from the flights and by a bus here, in order to move into the city, you have to cross the bridge. And while this was a new bridge built by millions of euros, this was eventually actually fined by when public protested, the municipality fined the architect later on. But the sad part is this was built with a lot of barriers. And this is important while I work in a particular sector of accessibility. It's nothing special. The only speciality about this is that we have forgotten that the heritage value can be preserved only if people can connect to it. And if your elderly people cannot connect to the water, the whole concept of pilgrimage as a heritage will be killed. If our ghats cannot be accessible, there is no pilgrimage left. And with no pilgrimage, the heritage has already died, right? On the other side, there are different experiences of human life which have to be brought together. So while this bridge was built, it said, this was a news heading which came in the Telegraph there, that new £4 million Grand Canal Bridge injures tourists. And then they built a new structure around it to make it wheelchair friendly in order to resolve it. But eventually what was happening was that the architect had to be penalized. And this is something which I myself saw there, how challenging it becomes for modern tourists to travel around it. But this is a new structure, it's a new intervention in an old heritage. But the question is that do we question the new in the right spirit such that the old can have a beautiful connect? So I completely, am with the fact that heritage is not really about something which has lost its time. Heritage is something about aging which can get more beautiful with time. But in order to realize that, we need to build these connects. So in fact, also what I'm trying to say is citizen awareness and the city municipal interventions led to even finding a penalty of 78,000 euros to the architect for this kind of a challenge that he built to this heritage, right? So this is where I think I would like to pause my presentation today by saying that ultimately a small story from Ustad Bismillah Khan, right, who used to play Shehnai on the banks of River Ganga in Varanasi. I'm told that he was offered the citizenship of US along with his family to move, but all he had said was, I can move, everything can move, but can you move my Ganga along the banks where I play the Shehnai? And if you can move that, only then I can move to this new land. So sometimes that is the value and power of heritage, that which is irrepressible, which is not possible really to connect. The only way we can move forward is to preserve it with our both hands, heart, and soul together. And this does require for us to come together and find ways, both in the spirit of education and in the spirit of actions, to take it forward. So with those words, I think I should stop here, and over to you for any questions or any observations if you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. If any of the participants have any query, you can ask those. Mr. Sandeep Yadav, you have raised your hand. Do you have any question?
No, it's by mistake.
Okay, sir. Anyone have any question? Okay, I don't think there's any question raised. Yes. Okay, I don't think any question is.
Antaradeep, please give me 1 minute. Sir, very good evening. Sir, I am Sudeep. I wanted to know, sir, how the metropolitan commercial culture will increase sustainable tourism, river development. And sir, if any kind of swampy area or swampy area or chor, if it is tourism development like Shobuzdeep, Rupnarayan River, sir, can we construct here tourism development for upcoming situation scenario?
So I think you're both questions which relate about sustainable tourism and in two different contexts. I may not be fully familiar with those contexts. So first of all, Sudeep, thanks for the question. My only response right now would be that the evaluation of the context has to be first done, right? We have to first truly map the situation and see how that town or that city or that municipality or that cosmopolitan region is projecting its own growth. As I mentioned right in the beginning, the biggest threat to our rivers, I find, is the growth model that we adopt for our own towns and cities. Now, the moment you understand the growth is going to be sectoral, how will it impact the social fabric, and how will it impact the fabric of physical planning? That's truly very critical, which in turn has an impact on the environmental fabric of the river as well. Now, within which, because looking at this growth, here I want to come to is the demographic growth. What kind of population are you going to build there? And based on that, because straight away coming to tourism, to my understanding, doesn't make sense, because tourism also requires to be human-centric. Tourism is planned for an intent. If you if you have a demographic population of a city which is 50% youth, well, I presume that they are not going to temples so often, but they're going to look at rivers to sit around it, maybe have their activities of their things, maybe look at a mobile or have some other kind of activities which are going to be very distinct. And therefore, a tourism plan does require to do these studies initially, such that a sustainable model of tourism around those rivers can be done, within which one can see, okay, in fact, I would say age-free tourism. How can you build spaces such that people of any age can come there? And I find one of the most beautiful answers is to invest in the ecology, to invest in the nature. For example, I have rarely seen in India people coming for fishing as tourism. From the land of Bengal, where I assume that fishing could be an important thing, fishing can be an amazingly meditative activity. It can be an amazing recreational activity, and it can be an engaging family activity. But where are the spots where people go and do fishing? And I've seen on various rivers in Japan, this is a beautiful activity of human pursuit. So even I would say new innovations are also required in tourism sector, but this will all require contextual understanding. Along with contextual understanding, I perhaps wish, on a louder note, is the engagement of the citizens. Do you ask people what they need, or do you give people and then you see how they do? And this is where we start having problems of what is called as environmental behavioral challenges. You will see people throwing food here, you will see people, you ask them, make them active partners, and then that is how a city culture requires to be built. But for that, of course, small pilots, little initiatives have to happen. And the success of such projects is usually measured in decades, not in a day or a month or years, right? So, but this does require a sustained activity, a sustained commitment, without which we cannot expect anything sustainable in any field of life, including the idea of heritage. So that would be my response for now, Sudeep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So, as we nearly come to the end of our today's webinar, but before ending that, I'd like to invite Ms. Ria Malik, Visiting Faculty Cube and SAIARD, to give the concluding remarks and vote of thanks for today's webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Antara. I would like to thank each and every panelist. I'm so honored to give my vote of thanks today for this wonderful session. And on behalf of the entire organizing team, basically, I would like to thank our panelists to join us today for this session and sharing your valuable thoughts with us. I must mention a deep appreciation to Dr. Bishwajit Roy Chaudhary for taking this opportunity and put river as an important element of urban development and the riverine heritage, and how we can restore all these things together and proceed to a better future, so in India and other Asian countries. And last but not the least, I'd like to thank our organizing team for their supporting to make the event successful. So thank you everyone for participating us and making the event success. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ria, and thank you, Antara, also, and all the resource persons, those who have joined, and I'm really thankful to all the participants, audience, for the heartfelt cooperation and participation. We have shared the meeting link, certificate link in our chat box. Those who have joined, you may fill the form and you will get the certificate in your email ID. And Rahija sir, are you here? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vishwaji.
Finally, you have joined, and thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Piyush, yeah, any of our resource persons? Okay. So hope we will see in next of our event very soon in association with the Ministry and SAARC. And Aninda, are you here? Yes, Aninda, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations for your wonderful presentation. Prashanti ma'am, thank you ma'am for your
Sir,
nice cooperation.
very nice. Thank you for inviting me. And it
Sure,
was so
sure. It's,
wonderful to hear the diverse aspects of riverine heritage. It was so wonderful. And it's really inspiring. One of the speakers informed us we can move anywhere in the world, but can my river Ganges can move?
yes,
So
yes, yes, yes.
it's very, very sensational and common to all of us. And it's really divine and it's a religion.
Yes.
Management of riverine heritage is restoring our religion. So, with all my heartfelt congratulations to all the speakers. Thank you once again for inviting and hope to join in the future as well.
Thank
We'll
you,
do
ma'am.
something better
Yes,
for SAARC. So,
yes,
hope we
yes.
will be able to.
Thank you so much. Okay, okay, thank you. And Nilima ma'am, Professor Gupta ma'am, here anyway. So thank you once again on behalf of SAIARD. Big thanks. Thank you.